He saved hundreds of lives today, and every single one of them wants him dead. There's a boy standing on a bridge in Seoul, gas mask on his face, gun in his hand, screaming at people to run. The cameras are rolling. The headlines are already written. Terrorist spotted near Han River. Suspect armed and dangerous. Shoot on sight. Nobody is looking at the purple haze only he can see. Nobody notices that the bridge is already cracking from the inside. Nobody cares. They just see the gun. And he knows that. He has always known that. That is the part nobody in Terror Man ever wants to admit. The tragedy was never the misfortune he could see. The tragedy was everything he could not stop people from believing about him. Min Jungwoo was not always this person. He was soft once, quiet, the kind of teenager who flinched when someone raised their voice. He had money, a big empty house, and a father who was never home. He had one friend. That was it. The world did not notice him, and honestly, he preferred it that way. But something lived behind his eyes that the world was not ready for. He could see it, a purple haze, drifting off people, clinging to places, thickening around moments just before they broke. He called it misfortune, a gift from something he did not ask for and could not explain. 15 to 20 minutes before disaster struck, the fog would appear. A mall collapse, a gas explosion, a bridge giving way. He could see the exact shape of what was coming. And what nobody tells you is how long he tried to do this the right way. He warned people with words first. He ran to strangers and grabbed their arms and begged them to listen. He called emergency lines. He stood in front of crowds and told them the building they were standing in was going to kill them in 12 minutes. You already know how that went. They laughed. They ignored him. Once, a security guard threw him out of a shopping center while 20 people died inside. That day broke something in him that was never going to grow back. And what he discovers in that silence after changes everything. Because Min Jungwoo does not collapse. He does not cry and walk away and decide it is not his problem. He sits with the weight of those 20 lives, and he makes a decision that most people, most heroes, would never make. He decides that if kindness will not move them, then fear will. The gas mask comes first, then the weapons. Not to harm, never to harm, but to terrify, to dominate the space with so much threat that people have no choice but to run, to evacuate, to live. He becomes the most feared thing in the room so that everything else becomes less frightening by comparison. He becomes Terror Man. Let that settle for a second. A boy who sees disaster coming disguises himself as the disaster. He makes himself the monster so the real monster cannot win. There's a kind of genius in that. There is also a kind of madness. Min Jungwoo knows exactly which one the world will remember. This is where most people stop paying attention. Don't, because the real story is just beginning. Every rescue costs him something. Not just energy, not just sleep, something deeper. Each time he puts on a mask, the person underneath it gets a little harder to find. He starts to move differently, talk differently. The shy boy who flinched at raised voices learns to raise walls instead. He trains his body. He sharpens his mind. He stops hesitating in the way that used to make him human. And the public? They make him a villain with every breaking news segment. Wanted posters with his face. Politicians demanding his capture. People who were alive because of him standing in front of cameras, calling him a terrorist who should be imprisoned or shot. He watches all of it, and he keeps going. That is the moment fans fall in love with him and cannot explain why. Because it is not strength that moves you here. It is the specific kind of loneliness that comes from doing the right thing and being punished for it, over and over with no end in sight. No recognition, no relief, just the next purple haze and the next decision about whether to let it pass or put the mask back on. He puts the mask back on, every time, but the cost compounds. His mental health begins to fracture in ways the story does not announce with dramatic music or tears. It shows up quietly, in the way he starts to question whether one saved life is worth the hatred of 1,000. In the way he stops believing that changing the world is possible for a single person, even a person like him. He begins to look at the system, the governments, the institutions, the disaster response committees, and realize that the hero model is broken. That what the world needs is not a man in a mask. It needs structures that do not require sacrifice to function. This is the thought that separates Jungwoo from every other character like him. Light Yagami wanted to be God. Lelouch wanted to be remembered. But Min Jungwoo, he wants to make himself unnecessary. He wants to build a world where no one has to become Terror Man ever again. Not because he is tired, but because he is honest enough to know that a world dependent on one man's suffering is not a world worth saving the same way twice. Nobody talks about that. Everyone focuses on the mask, the gas, the gun. They miss the philosopher underneath it. They miss the boy who is slowly, methodically trying to dismantle the very role he created. And this is where most people stop paying attention. Don't, because what he sacrifices next, nobody sees coming. There's a moment deep in his story where Jungwoo is at his lowest. The misfortune does not stop. The world does not change. The people he saved have already forgotten him or turned against him again. He is standing at the edge of something. Not a bridge, not a rooftop, but a decision about who he is willing to become to finish what he started. Slow down here, because this moment is everything. He does not choose darkness. He does not choose glory. He chooses to keep going without either. No audience, no reward, no guarantee that anything he does will matter past his own lifetime. Just the purple haze and the next person standing too close to it. That is not heroism as the world defines it. That is something older and quieter and far more devastating. The fans who found Terror Man before anyone else knew what it was understood something immediately. They were not watching a power fantasy. They were watching a boy slowly learn the cost of caring about strangers in a world that will never care back. And they stay because somewhere in that story, they recognize something true about themselves, about how often the right thing looks wrong from the outside, about how much invisible effort it takes to keep a world running that will never send a thank you. Min Jungwoo is not the hero of Terror Man. He is its wound, the part that never fully heals. The part the story keeps returning to because it cannot let go of the question he embodies. What do you owe the world when the world owes you nothing? He never answers it cleanly, and that is exactly why he will never be forgotten. Now here is what I want to know from you. If you could sit across from Min Jungwoo, after everything, just for 5 minutes, what would you say to him? Would you tell him he was right? Would you tell him to stop? Or would you sit in silence because you already know there is nothing left to say that would change a single choice he made? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. And if this story pulled you somewhere you did not expect, if you felt that weight, then you already know what kind of channel this is. Subscribe, because the next character coming is carrying something just as heavy, and you will not want to miss it.